Well, hello everybody. How is everybody doing? Hopefully doing pretty well. Uh, hopefully doing pretty well. So, we have a good stream today. And by good stream today, I mean we don't have a good stream today. Which is more specifically to say we probably have a good stream today. Maybe. But we don't have games. Now you may be wondering why we don't have games. What's going on that causes that to happen? So I will show you why we don't have games. One moment. Here's why we don't have games. I don't have runes, and this is kind of annoying. Now I could go and spend all of my IP, actually probably a pretty small chunk of my IP, and get the runes that I need. But I'm not going to, because I don't want to like not get refunded after spending that, because customer service says, not to me directly, but they said to people generally, that they are working to get this resolved. They're going to do a script to put them all back in, and I don't want to take the risk. So I don't want to use up my refund, although I've never used a refund, but I don't want to use up my refund trying to get my runes back. So, or my IP back from buying runes that I already own. So anyway, big issue happened yesterday to a whole lot of people, not something specific to me. I did contact customer support, and some people said they've contacted customer support and it's already been fixed for them. But for me, it has not yet at this point. I have 0 runes of any sort, lost my rune pages. I played a fairly miserable game, whereas Caitlyn, and I had something like 54 AD at level 1. Before I knew that I was missing runes, and that's how I discovered I was missing runes, is by seeing I had no rune pages. So anyway, we have no games today, but I do have Q&A, which coincidentally I did ask for questions for Q&A, so we're just going to make this a Q&A stream. One moment. I'm just drinking a little bit of water before we start here. And all right, we are doing... What should I talk about? What should I talk about first? How has the day been so far? Well, the day's been fine. Let my hair grow out just a little bit. We'll see to what degree I keep it there. I've been playing Dungeons of Dreadmore. Had a friend who was telling me about it, and it was $6 on Steam or $7 on Steam, so I went ahead and picked it up. If you want kind of a dungeon crawler game that is turn-based and kind of cool, well, it's $6 on Steam. Pick it up. If you don't, I mean, worst case scenario, you spend like $6. And it's got some free content with it. It's got a free expansion pack with it. I don't know. It's pretty fun. It's pretty fun. It's got some flaws, but I mean, it's $6. So I've been having fun with it. Let's see. We went out yesterday. So yesterday the servers were down all morning, and I wake up pretty early in the morning. I'm the first one to wake up and take care of our son. So my wife gets to sleep in a little bit, and then then she wakes up, and that's our routine. So she gets up at night if he wakes up at night, but I wake up first so she can catch up on any lost sleep. So I wake up pretty early on a daily basis, and yesterday until I think about 11, at least 11, the servers were down. So at that point I said, I could wait around and see if I can stream this or see if I can do Learn the League on here. I could wait around and just hope they all come back up, or I cannot waste any more time hoping and waiting for that. So when I did finally get home pretty late last night, there was a hour-and-a-half queue, I think, on the server. So I don't know how bad it was yesterday, but I do know that I'm happy I avoided all that. So there you go. It's warm. It's very warm right now. I don't like how warm it is. It is... I think it's like 80 degrees. So a bunch of you are like in California or the South are going to be like, that's silly. Why are you complaining about that? But it's so warm. It's so warm. I hate it. Here it never gets, well, it does get this warm. Okay. So we have questions. Let me pull these up. And let me pull up the other one. I should probably let people on Facebook know that I'm actually doing this now too. So 1 second on that as well. Facebook, hello. We are live streaming. Oh, and now I actually have to do this I have to do this other thing too, where I actually put this on the... John, get off there. Get off there. There we go. Alright. We are live streaming. Now let's get this linked up. And let's go ahead and put on the Don't Feed thread as well. Yeah, I don't know why they re-released this patch. Or more specifically, I don't know why they didn't figure out the problem in it. Now, I understand this kind of thing happens. But it seems like a pretty... Well, I don't know. If you weren't around on Sunday, the same patch, at least the same stuff that was coming out in the patch, I don't know what they changed or what troubleshooting they did between now and then, or between then and now. But on Sunday, they released this patch, and it broke the servers all of Sunday. And then they released the same patch yesterday, and it broke the servers. I don't know. There's no point in rehashing, because you all experienced it, but I was just surprised that they actually released the same patch twice without fixing the issue. But they've been pretty good about patching, so I can't really say too much. I will say it was pretty surprising to actually have a rollback on a patch. But I think I said that after, like, on Monday or Tuesday. It's pretty rare that you actually see a rollback on patches. So, our questions. Any champion? These are on Facebook. If you had a question, I'll just double check the Facebook stuff. This won't be a terribly long stream, but if you're on Facebook, add a question onto this thread. It's the second one down, and I might catch it by the end of this stream. Maybe not. Okay, so first question, Nacho, any champion you consider to be imbalanced at the moment? This had a lot of upvotes. So, any champion I consider to be imbalanced at the moment? Not really. I don't think there are really any good, strong examples of... I don't think there are any strong examples of champions that are just blatantly imbalanced. I do think Soraka, Shen, I think we're seeing some... let me get specific here. Soraka is very, very good at keeping her lane a stalemate and keeping her lane very annoying, but that doesn't make her overpowered. But I do find her just extraordinarily annoying for that, because all she basically she can keep a lane completely passive. There are ways to overcome that, but you really have to work to overcome that. From an MMO mindset, you come into League of Legends, you play a healer in an MMO, that's awesome for you. You actually have control over your lane. For anyone else, it's extraordinarily annoying. So, yeah. And they've nerfed her too, and she's still pretty obnoxious about it, looking at some of the tournaments recently. So Shen, again, I don't think he's totally overpowered. He hasn't won an extraordinary amount of games for teams at tournaments in terms of what he's done, but he does have this crazy split pushing potential where he can actually just go push a lane and easily go across the map to an ally. Just makes it extraordinarily hard. You can't... Normally with split pushing, there is some decision making to be made. You say, well, they've only got 4 people. They got 1 person off pushing here. Okay, let's take our 5 and kill these 4. With Shen, that is never a possibility, because Shen will show up from the lane he's pushing and get into the fight. It's just kind of it's an annoying situation just because of his mobility across the map. Other champions have mobility across the map, but Shen is probably the worst offender as far as split pushing. Now, he's not the strongest pusher. You do have to be able to respond to it, but this is something a lot of teams were trying to pull off in tournaments recently. But yeah, maybe Nautilus to a degree, just in terms of the amount of crowd control he outputs. But again, I'm not really talking about champions that are totally overpowered, because in these cases, they've had slightly better success rates than other champions in terms of overall stats for overall teams. But that doesn't mean that they're totally overpowered. So, I don't know. But it also depends on what level of play you're talking about. I don't know how much I care for this art. Well, I don't know. It matters. If you're talking about new players and what new players have to go up against, I think that it does matter to a degree when you have really high skill cap champions like Lee Sin, or even Shaco to a degree, or a few of these other champions that can just, or Tryndamere, which I'm not even saying that for being high skill cap, but just for being harder to counter. I don't know. It helps you learn the game. No, I wouldn't say they're overpowered. I wouldn't say anything needs to be changed about them, but they're very strong against newer players, which is okay, because newer players have to learn those champions anyway. So, Torgir, if you were given the opportunity to design a game, what kind of gameplay would it have? Okay, so how to answer this, because there's so many answers to this. There are so many answers to this as far as designing games. So let me get into a little bit of what I think about where games are. So in about 2000, I want to say about 2002, maybe a little earlier than that, there was this huge shift to where every genre of game became a 3D game. It might have happened just a little bit later than that, but like basically every genre of game, whether it was, the launch of EverQuest or anything at all, every genre all of a sudden became a 3D adventure. Even like looking at Mario Brothers, stuff like that. And so they got away from the two-dimensional aspect of it, and I don't know exactly what was driving them to do that. I think it was kind of the new technology. People thought that was where it's going to go. Unfortunately, this is very tangential, and it's not answering your whole question. I'm going to try to answer a lot of the question, but I'm going to go in point by point. This first point is, I think there's a problem with going into 3D for every single thing. I think that there is a lot of room for two-dimensional games. In fact, you're starting to see a lot of companies going back to two-dimensional games. So looking at the recent Super Mario Brothers trailers I've seen, I'm not a huge fan of Mario Brothers. I mean, I liked Super Mario World back in the day, but I'm using that as an example just because it is a good example of it. I'm looking at the recent release of the Sonic the Hedgehog games, the new ones. Again, looking at it going to 3D and then them changing it back to 2D, and it's actually doing pretty well. Obviously, Diablo 3 being released, even though it's on a 3D engine, a pretty solid one, as far as I know, coming in as 2D. Obviously, StarCraft 2, well, I guess RTS games haven't really ever switched into 2D or 3D, which is good, there was an old RTS game. I'm not even sure it was RTS, but it was like a space game. Moon Bases or something, but that was 3D, but that was like 90s game. It doesn't work for RTSs very well. So, anyway, I think getting down to it, I think 3D is way too prevalent, and I've thought that for about 10 years now. I think that too many developers assume that that's exactly what everybody wants. I think there's so much room for good games because it translates so well. You're able to understand the environment so much better. You're able to have so much more control over yourself, not over yourself, but how to put this? Anybody ever played Dwarf Fortress? I'm sure a few of you have. Dwarf Fortress is a fantastic game. You could never in a 3D game get the information that you can get once you learn Dwarf Fortress. Now, it takes a lot of learning. In a 3D game, you could never present that in a good way. It could never happen. Or if it did happen, it'd be with some crazy technology out there, some crazy innovations to 3D. Dwarf Fortress is a fantastic game. If you like Minecraft, if you like Terraria, and you want a game that you do not care about the graphics at all, go to Dwarf Fortress. I don't know what their website is, but it's really easy to find. Also, Learning Curve is a learning cliff, multiple learning cliffs. You must watch tutorials if you ever want to get into it in any serious way. And I don't say Dwarf Fortress is a great game that you absolutely must play, but it is a great game. Play it if you really want to get into a complex game. So there's a 3D thing, and there's kind of how you present information to players. That's important to me. That's one of my big things, is how you present information. Don't always follow what is kind of the popular trending thing. The games that are really breaking ground are the ones that are not following that. In fact, we just ordered a Kinect today, an Xbox Kinect, with a few things. And I know one of the games that has really good reviews that we are probably picking. Well, I don't know if we're picking it up. Is Gun. Man, anybody who owns a Kinect knows exactly what I'm talking about. It's Gunslinger? No, it's not Gunslinger. Anyway, it's something. Maybe it's Gunslinger. In fact, let me actually just go onto Amazon and check that out. But anyway, in that one, you actually control marionette puppets, and that's, people say that's totally, it's just a totally new thing. Gunstringer. Marionette puppets, and it's just awesome. But you've got all these totally innovative games that are coming out. So anyway, if I were to make a game, I'm partial to strategy games. I'm partial to tactics games. So getting into like, what are some good games that I like? Well, talking about tactics, Final Fantasy Tactics I thought was very good. XCOM UFO Defense, talking about the originals before they got into the crazy FPS stuff and all that. The original XCOM UFO Defense is probably, in my opinion, one of the best games or the best game of all time. It is definitely one of but I think I would still class it as probably the best game ever made. It's just a fantastic, beautiful game made in like 1994. It's an ancient game. But even back then, the graphics are great. It's not so great anymore. But it was an amazing tactics game, totally destructible environment. Had RPG elements, what we call RPG elements, leveling characters and stuff, squad-based, all this stuff. I don't know how to explain it, but it basically had everything that is interesting to me as a gamer. Every single thing that is interesting to me as a gamer is in that game. Where you have tech trees, where you're researching, you've got manufacturing. Basically, you're handling a strategic worldview, and you're also handling squad-based tactics at the same time. That whole franchise went by the wayside. This is another example. So the 3D example where I'm saying like 3D I think got way too prevalent. Real time got way too prevalent. The idea that you cannot have turn-based games anymore and you must go into real time or asynchronous. Asynchronous is a whole lot better. So asynchronous, what I'm referring to is like turns where everybody takes a turn and all turns are processed at the same time. That's fine. But when everything moved to real time, I say this specifically in relation to XCOM because I want to say, I think they did it in like their third game, after Terror from the Deep, the third game. I think they did some real-time stuff, but looking at the remakes, the UFO... It was a series of games on Steam recently. By recently, I mean like maybe 5 years ago. So not recently at all, but in relation to XCOM, somewhat recently. I don't remember the exact name of the series. Is another one that I probably should remember. Anyway, they went to this whole real-time thing, and it was trash. But anyway, now they're remaking, according to everything I've heard, there is an actual legitimate remake of XCOM UFO Defense coming out sometime soon, and that is legitimately going back to turn-based. And if that is as good as the original, but it is updated to a modern setting or a modern engine, it will be one of the best games out there if they do it right. And everybody says that. Everybody who loves XCOM will say if they do it right, this really needs to be redone because it's such a major thing. And if they bring in multiplayer, I don't know if they're bringing multiplayer, but this is a game that has always needed multiplayer. It's why I was looking at Frey on Steam recently. Okay, so if I were to make a game, and yeah, if I were to make a game, I would probably do something turn-based or pseudo-turn-based. What I mean by that is something where it is not all about instant reaction, because I think there's so much room. I think there's so much awesome things you can do with turn-based systems, or at the very least, not real-time systems. Turn-based, it doesn't have to be turn-based. In fact, I think turn-based has big flaws of its own. Asynchronous is probably the very best thing out there right now. But there's so much room for cool things to be done with that. And obviously, you've still got major franchises like Civilization. I was just playing Endless Space. So Civilization 5, Gods and Kings just came out if you're interested in that series and you aren't aware of that. There's still a lot of good turn-based games out there, but there's room for so much more. Almost certainly any game that I made would be multiplayer. I would love that. Maybe probably not the first game that I like. The first serious game that I make probably won't be multiplayer because it'll be something that I just have to program on my own. Probably fixed perspective. And then getting into the types of games I like. I love strategy. I love tactics. I've always liked RTS games. So like Red Alert 2 was kind of where I started. Boy, there was an old game from Sierra. What was the name of that game? Sierra. I don't even know if Sierra's still around. I think they might be. I think I might have seen their name on something recently. It was a space colonization game where it was an RTS. And you had tech trees. I think you had tech trees. You had structures that you would build, bases and all that. It was a pretty cool game. It predated Red Alert 2. I don't think it predated Red Alert 1 or Command & Conquer. I think it predated Command & Conquer's first expansion. That was a good game, too. I love Command & Conquer's first expansion, which is like Tiberian. Man, I should have made notes on all these games. Outpost. I think it was called Outpost. There's Outpost and Outpost 2 from Sierra. Outpost wasn't very good. Outpost 2 was pretty good. For its time, it was great. So, anyway, where am I going with that? Yeah. I like 4X games, Expand, Explore, Exploit, Exterminate. I do like them a lot. Tactical games, XCOM, Final Fantasy Tactics. What I think there's a whole lot of room for is First, I would say I think there's a whole lot of room for a game that combines what Minecraft has and what Dwarf Fortress has. If you've played both of those games, you get what I'm saying. If you haven't played one of those games, most likely you haven't played Dwarf Fortress, most likely you have played Minecraft, then you probably don't get what I'm saying. But Dwarf Fortress just has such a deep system to it. Like, there's just so much more to the world in Dwarf Fortress than there is in Minecraft. Minecraft's a great game, but if you could have kind of the imagination, like be able to express your imagination, be able to express yourself, the multiplayer aspects that Minecraft brings to the table, but you can combine that with the depth of Dwarf Fortress, I think that'd be amazing. And separate of that, strategic browser-based MMORPG. Definitely doesn't have to be browser-based, but it has to be something accessible for people. I think there's a lot of room for MMORPGs. And I say MMORPG, I guess I probably, just MMO is a better term here, because I wouldn't try and make like World of Warcraft 2 or anything. If I were to design a game, I wouldn't make it anything like World of Warcraft. It would be something a lot more strategic and a lot more expressive, something where you can express yourself, you can do what you want to do, and not be pigeonholed into a linear experience, because I don't really like linear experiences. I like challenges. I liked World of Warcraft not because of the linear experience of, doing a bunch of quests. One of the things I pretty much never did in World of Warcraft was dailies. Things like that were just kind of, to me, bullshit. Sorry, mind my language. But what I really enjoyed was raiding. That's why I was into hardcore raiding, is because you could actually think about what you were doing and come up with these cool ways to solve these problems. And there wasn't always one way to solve problems. Especially the early content, a lot of the early content in World of Warcraft they didn't throw in so many mechanics. They did make them difficult, but they didn't throw in so many mechanics that there was only one legitimate way to do the encounter. So you could come up with totally different strategies than Guild B. Guild A would have this strategy, Guild B would have this strategy. Guild C, which had higher latency because they had a bunch of Australian players, would have a totally different strategy that was built to protect them from mistakes caused by latency, or, delayed reactions caused by latency. Yeah. So, anyway. I believe good systems, understandable systems. That's another thing. The ability to understand the game you're playing, I think, is really critically important. Yeah, give it to me. This is an awesome. Got this for Father's Day. I mean, I'm not going to wear it. It's not for me. It's for my son. But it is awesome. Where was I going? I don't even know where I was going with this. So, anyway, I do game design, and that's why I learned programming. And I'm actually going to go probably back to my Android project, just because it's actually pretty close to a completed product. This is something I worked on early last year. I'm probably going to go back to it and at least flesh something out. Hopefully a lot of you own Android devices, because I want people to try it. But I do have to actually make a game. What I made was basically an engine for a game, but I never made the game. And I have to rework a lot of it, but I don't know. I'm not the best programmer. I program because I want to make a product. I don't program because I want to be the best programmer. And my idea is that I'll make just an amazing, fun, well, hopefully fun product. And then I'll be able to get programmers when I expand from there. So, anyway, Luke, what is up with the stealth stuff? I've heard whisperings of a stealth rework and such. What is wrong with the current stealth situation? Okay, so what is wrong with the current stealth situation is part one of that. The current problem with stealth is Evelyn. Okay, so here's the deal. Evelyn used to be extraordinarily strong. She's not now. So every time we talk about Evelyn, and I feel like I say this too many times during these Q&A things, but it does come up and a lot of people don't understand it. Evelyn was nerfed to hell. She used to be a very strong champion. At the very least, she used to make people totally rethink how they were playing in the game. So just by virtue of having an Evelyn who was not visible on the map, your team would need to have either an Oracles, or you'd need to stay back at your tower in the early and mid game, or early game. If you did not, you were going to be punished, or at least you were so afraid of being punished hard by Evelyn coming in and initiating a gank that your entire team had to play entirely differently while an Evelyn was on the map. It was pretty brutal because the main thing is she opened up with a stun. She was just a very, very strong champion because when you initiate with a stun that the other team cannot react to because they are not aware of you being there and you can't do anything about it other than sit at your tower. It's not just frustrating for, higher level players or whatever. It's extraordinarily frustrating for lower level players to the point that they quit the game. And that's why they nerfed her. And when they nerfed her, they didn't just bring her down a notch. They brought her to being the worst champion in League of Legends, bar none, no questions asked. She is a terrible champion. If you pick her, you might be successful some of the time. If you pick her, your team will probably not like you. If you pick her, the other team will probably assume correctly that they're going to win the game because you're playing on a 4-person team. Because you are not a 5th person when you're playing Evelyn. Now, you can do well as Evelyn some of the time. You can do well as Evelyn when people don't understand who Evelyn is. You can do well as Evelyn and this, that, you can name all the situational things in the world. And a lot of people who really like to play Evelyn will name a bunch of situational things. But she's a terrible champion. Evelyn is a champion that when she is in the game, I assume that the first time she shows herself, our team will get first blood. And or, if she shows herself around me, I'll just change targets to her and kill her. Or I will completely ignore her and continue on another champion. She's not a good champion right now. But Twitch and Shaco are actually in decently okay spots. Twitch has that long stealth, like Evelyn. The thing about Twitch is he becomes really powerful in the late game. If he can farm, if he can get those items, he gets a few successful ganks. He's actually still extraordinarily strong in the late game. Among the very strongest champions if he can get in unexpectedly on a team. Now, Shaco's pretty good too. If you've seen Shaco, he's got a lot of flexibility. He does a lot of different things. He tends to be a little weaker in direct team fights where he's just in the team fight and not doing something crazy else. But Shaco's in a decent spot right now by comparison to Evelyn. So when we talk about the stealth rework and everything like that, we're primarily talking about Evelyn because she is the one that is the total problem with the game in her original design. They nerfed her to hell and they're looking for some way to fix that. Now what they are going to do with the stealth overhaul, it probably will go beyond Evelyn. They want to have stealth champions. They want to change their impact on the game. Because even Twitch and Shaco are pretty strong against newer players. They're pretty rough to play. Not as bad as Evelyn was, but they're still pretty rough to play. I don't know with certainty what they're going to do. I've seen all sorts of rumors on what they're going to do. I can't tell you exactly what it's going to be. Whether it'll be a change to the duration of stealth, whether it'll be a change to items. There was that rumor with Riot Nasus being fired. Somebody pretty obviously faked something where they said, Oracle's Elixir will have a short duration. It's not going to be a permanent thing until you die. There's all sorts of rumors with it. I have no idea at all what's going to happen with it. Whatever it is going to be, it has to be fairly significant. And it does have to balance the effects of stealth against new players, but let those champions still be strong in their own way. So yeah. Sire, do you think that music has a major effect on one's gameplay? Yes. So you don't know this about me because I can't do anything to the extent that I'd like to, but I love playing games with music. So turn on my Zune player. or if the game has good music or whatever. But turn on my Zoom player and just listen to whatever tracks I want. Yeah. Yeah. Well, my wife says, doesn't everybody? And that's kind of what I'm getting at. I love playing games with music. Unfortunately, I can't show you that on stream, and unfortunately, that does actually impact my mood, if not my performance in games. When I listen to the music I want, it helps me relax. It helps me. One of the things, first point is, it lets me focus. It lets me get in the mood for the game. It lets me actually focus. Lets me, pay more attention, but also just kind of get in that mood. So if I'm listening to particularly fast music or whatever, gets my brain working. I'm able to just pay more attention. But also, it helps me relax. And so when I lose a game, it's not annoying to me. When I lose games and I am not listening to music or whatever, I'm just kind of focused on the game or whatever, it's a little more frustrating to me than it is to sit back, relax, play for fun, play to enjoy myself, listen to music, and then if I lose a game, oh well. Now, I don't really get a whole, I don't rage or anything on stream. A lot of the games, obviously the games I play without music are on stream, but I do enjoy games more when I can play music. So, there you go. You may see me drinking like 2. These are both water. I don't know why. I feel like my eyes, I actually feel dehydrated right now. It's probably because it's warm. We had the oven on too. It's probably because it's warm and we had the oven on, so it just feels dry. Okay. So, Sebastian, do you like when people counter the meta, like taking an AD carry into mid if they see a Galio mid? Yeah. I mean, yes, this is what you should be doing. If you have hard counters to different lanes, you shouldn't just put your team in the meta. You should take your hard counters against those players. In high-end play, you don't see it as much, although you do see it. But in high-end play, you don't see it as much because people are actively trying to counter the other team. But in like 99% of games that people actually play, a lot of people just pick the champion they want to play, or the champion, for whatever lane or whatever. If teams were more coordinated, if you can actually convince your team to do it, it's just better to counter whoever's, if you're playing draft pick and you can actually see what they pick, and you counter their champion selection, even if it's not in the meta, it's better to do that. You have to make sure your team is still somewhat balanced for a late game team fight. But yeah, if you got hard counters, especially early game hard counters, that's wonderful. So yes, the meta is great. Countering the meta is better. Depending. You have to counter it pretty hard because you do still want your AD carry to get a lot of gold. You do still want your AP carry to get experience faster. You do still want to have dragon control, which means having 3 to 4 players in the mid to bottom area of the map, and 3 to 4, I'm counting the jungler in there, just so you have that dragon control. But honestly, dragon control is one of those high-end concepts. It's one of those, the pro players will always worry about dragon control. I don't think there are all that many people below a certain elo that actually, their team actually focuses on dragon control. You'll usually find like one player on a team who will say, okay, at this point, whatever, if that one player is on the team and they say it's going to be up in 2 minutes, then the whole team will react and have good dragon control. But if you're not in games where there's even one player doing that, doesn't even matter as much that you have 3 to 4 players at the bottom half of the map. Anyway. But you should do it. You got to convince your team to do it. A lot of people are dumb as far as AD carries. Not AD carries, as far as the meta and adhering to it at all costs, even when it's going to lose you a game. Davey, just saw a video you did a while ago, and you said you thought Heroes of Newerth is a better game. Is that still true? So So if you haven't watched the video, you guys should watch it, but I assume a lot of you have because it's sitting at about 450,000 views. And it's old, about a year and a half. No. Yeah, about a year and a half, a little over a year and a half. Heroes of Newerth is an expertly designed game, so is Dota 2. They are genuinely good games. Genuinely good games that have been in development for a long time, but it kind of falls into there's a lot more knowledge required and there's a lot more you can do. In my opinion, that usually makes a game better, not worse. So, I don't know. Let's see. Heroes of Newerth. It's all in the movie, but I'll just go ahead and jump into it. Heroes of Newerth. Heroes of Newerth and Dota 2, essentially the same thing. You've got some different champions, some different mechanics, but essentially the same thing when I talk about them. So one of the things you can do in Heroes of Newerth Dota 2 is you can actively juke through the jungle. So it's not just bushes. There's a lot of like secret routes. There are not bushes, as far as I know, in Dota 2, or Heroes of Newerth for that matter, that have the same impact. So in League of Legends, you go into a bush, you drop vision, whatever. In Dota 2 and Heroes of Newerth, you actually go into pockets of the jungle to break vision, and you go through little paths in the jungle, whatever, and some heroes can break down trees, and it's just a lot more dynamic in what you can do. There's denying. Denying is a big part of the game in both of those games. Denying is when an opponent is at low health. Wait, no. An allied minion is at low health. An allied creep is at low health. And when it's low enough, you can attack it with your normal attack to kill it before the opponents can kill it to last hit it for golden experience. And by doing so, you deny them a certain portion of their experience in the lane. Gangplank used to be able to do that in League of Legends. He used to be able to use his... What did they do to Gangplank? I wasn't around when they got rid of his denial, and I'm just realizing that his mechanics aren't even similar to that anymore. Well, anyway, he used to be able to kill off minions in his lane, and it creates this disparity in level over time. You do it enough times, and it creates a disparity in level. So anyway, there's just a lot more in the items. There's a lot more on-activate items. I used to be really good with on-activate items because I used to be fairly good at Heroes of Newerth, and now I'm not quite as good. There's pet classes where you actually control 2 units in the game, not just one. It's just I feel that there is more to Dota 2 and Heroes of Newerth in terms of game design. Unfortunately, there is, as far as Heroes of Newerth is concerned, just not as good of a community. And I know that's silly to say because, hey, League of Legends, there's trash talk, there's all sorts of stuff. Until you've played Heroes of Newerth, you can't really say anything about how bad League of Legends is. And I don't know actually how bad Dota 2 is. So let me backpedal a little. I'm kind of speaking from a mindset that I haven't reconsidered in a while. The thing that is nice about League of Legends is you don't have crowd controls that keep you crowd controlled the entire fight. Now, sometimes you do. If a team is very coordinated, they use multiple crowd controls on you, but you don't have 6-second stuns. You don't have these extraordinarily long crowd controls. You don't have carries to the degree that you have in Dota 2. So in Dota 2, or in Heroes of Newerth, when I was playing Wild Soul, I love playing Wild Soul. He's an agi champion. He had a bear with him, so there's Wild Soul, and he has a bear, and that bear has an item inventory too. You have to control both independently. They each have, different abilities, whatever. Just a fairly high skill cap champion, for sure. Fairly high skill cap in terms of playing effectively as Wild Soul. And the thing about Wild Soul is, like any other carry, Wild Soul was actually a little harder to do this with, but I started doing it as I got really good with him. You can go 1v5 versus an entire team in some games. An entire team. I had more annihilations than I've in Heroes of Newerth. Annihilation being the equivalent of a pentakill than I've had pentakills in League of Legends. And those were on Wild Soul. And it's just, you have champions that can actually 1v5 a team. Now, in League of Legends, in extreme circumstances, you can do that. In Dota 2 and Heroes of Newerth, that's more common. Not all the time, and you want to pick counters to different, heroes or whatever, but it's more common. The abilities in terms of crowd controls are more effective, and that actually makes the game, I don't want to say worse. I don't know. League of Legends, you have more that you can do in a team fight, no matter who you are. Every champion brings something to a team. You have that support champion, you have whatever. They bring more to a team in a lot of situations than some champion or some heroes in Heroes of Newerth or Dota 2 bring. I don't know. They're different games. But you do have more you can do. You have more of an impact on the game. It's less about those particular carries. It's a lot more dynamic, Dota 2 is, Heroes of Newerth. But League of Legends is quite fun. Less frustrating. Certainly less frustrating. Well, okay. Well, anyway, I won't say much else. They're different games. I think as far as game design, I would, if I were making a game, come up with something more like Dota 2 than League of Legends. So that's kind of my answer to it. I just wish the community were better on Heroes of Newerth. I'll look at Dota 2 at some point. You guys got me thinking about this. But anyway, I love League of Legends. Don't get me wrong. There's not a significant difference. Just saw a video you did a while ago, and you said that Holland was... Oh, that's the question. At Venus, will you try the Secret World in beta weekend? No. It could be a great game, but I won't do it. I played Age of Conan. Age of Conan was one of the biggest disasters that I've ever seen for an MMO. A AAA MMO, they just screwed up so many things. And when I finally left Age of Conan, after being it for quite a while, sticking it out quite a while, when I finally left Age of Conan, I couldn't do it anymore. Yeah, I said I would not play another FunCon game, and to this day I haven't. They may have a different team doing Secret World. I don't know. FunCon just... It was such a terrible release, and I'm not sure how they got away with it. Age of Conan, and they didn't get away with it. It was horrible for them, but it was just such a disaster, and such terrible game design, such terrible decision making on their part. I don't know. It's a company I just don't want to support again. Blizzard's in that camp for me too, but Blizzard at least is competent in the games they make. Secret World could be great. I'm just not interested in starting that again. I'm not going to happen. Maximilian, this isn't a question but a statement. After watching you play Olaf, it really made me want to play a better Olaf jungle. Even got the Brolaf skin for him. Yes, that is good. Olaf is a great champion. I like him a lot. Let me see if I can... Where are your... If you're joining us now, I'm not playing because I don't have runes. So I'm doing Q&A today. I'm reading through the YouTube comments. That's why you see me looking over here right now. Anything? Do I have any information about Pulsefire Ezreal? No, I don't. I'm curious too. I'm assuming that it was supposed to come out this week. Yeah, I'm assuming that the patch delayed it and they don't want to release it right now. So, let's see. Scroll down, see if I can find any. Are you satisfied with this meta? From Gangan Hyun. Are you satisfied with this meta? I don't think a game should be so easily boiled down into one meta. This kind of comes back to the Dota 2 and Heroes of Newerth versus League of Legends. League of Legends is straightforward enough that there really is just a better way to play the game. And everybody plays it almost every game. And you can counter that particular meta. You can counter the champions in it. And sometimes you can be successful at it, whatever. And occasionally the meta will just change outright. But Dota 2, Heroes of Newerth, you can do entirely different things. There are different metas you can choose from that can be more effective depending on what you want to do in a particular match. So there's just a whole lot more variety. So I don't know. I'm not satisfied with anything that is so stale. The game itself is good. There's a lot to League of Legends. There's a lot of cool stuff. There's a lot of decision making. It's still fun to do all this stuff, but there is an element missing that they could have, which is more variety in who you take to what lane all the time, and actually be able to statistically over time succeed at doing that. I don't know. It shouldn't be so easily boiled down to so few options. Let's see. Can you go in-depth? Can you go on an in-depth look at Mastery's runes and why some builds are popular and seen as the most optimal option? Not here, not easily. At some point, I may. Aaron Overhaul, I should probably answer this because I get questions about Poppy somewhat frequently. I'm really confused about why you don't talk about Poppy, but you talk about other melee champions when people ask for advice on them. Because I don't really know Poppy. I'm aware of Poppy. I'm aware of the risk she brings to a match. I'm aware of her scaling power. I'm aware of what happens if you let her farm. I'm aware of how to counter her. I'm aware of everything, but the one thing I have not done is actually play Poppy. She's an extraordinarily strong champion in late game if she's allowed to farm. She's also very easy to shut down in the early game with certain champions. But she's really good. I mean, she's really good. Being able to go into a team fight and just burst somebody down, that's why I like Olaf. So, yeah. Poppy's a good champion. Farm all day, then win the game by killing everyone. Let's see. Me and my girlfriend are into free downloadable MMORPGs. Any suggestions? No. No, I haven't tried too many. I've tried a bunch on my phone. I didn't like any of them on my phone. My little Android. Where is it? I mean, not terribly exciting. See that? You see that red mark? Every one of you should look to see if you have one. It's a sign of a true gamer. I read a thread on the League of Legends forums that that asked about gamer marks, and I was like, "What's that?" And it showed these pro gamers. Well, it showed one pro gamer girl that had like this red mark. And looked at my hand, and there it was. And apparently a bunch of people have them. So, yeah, better check. Is there anything wrong with the item Tiamat from Morgan Key? Yes, it has a puny, tiny, little range. Yeah. You can have two people somewhat close to each other, and hitting Tiamat won't actually hit the other person. It's got a small range. So, yeah, that's why Tiamat's not so good. So Tiamat, for anybody who doesn't know, it's an item that when you get it, your auto attacks deal splash damage around the target you hit. And that splash damage is 50% of the damage dealt by the attack itself. And it stacks. So technically, if you have 6 Tiamats, I think that's like 300% damage splashing. So 6 Tiamats, and it's got decent stats. It's got damage, health regen. It's some silly combination of stats on Tiamat. But you could actually realistically pick up a Tiamat, a set of 6 Tiamats or 5 Tiamats and boots or whatever, and survive in the late game. The problem is it has such a tiny range that to actually make use of it, you need everybody to literally stand on top of each other. But there's room for Fiora pentakills. Fiora, yeah, whatever. Fiora's ultimate applies on-hit effects on each of her jumps. And so you can, if you had a team of 5 people and you had 6 Tiamats, and all 5 of them were stacked together, and you ulted their team and hit a unique target every time with your ultimate as Fiora, and you proc Tiamat on every one of them, you would probably get a pentakill. I tried really hard to get a pentakill on Fiora. It genuinely does do a lot of damage, but you can't do anything afterwards. Anyway. Let's see. If you play today, can you go Lisa? I can't play today. I'm sorry. I mean, I could, but it's so frustrating to play without runes. It really is. Let me just see if they've given me any runes. No, not yet. Oh well. What's your favorite champion? Olaf, Sivir, Urgot, Ezreal. Well before Pulsefire Ezreal was out or anything, or it's not even out now, but probably a month or so ago, I started playing Ezreal. And he's quickly become one of my very favorite champions. So, unfortunately, what that means is I don't get to play him as much because people don't like to see me play the same champions over and over again. But I do like to play the same champions over and over again. If I could, my stream would primarily be me playing Sivir, Misfortune, Ezreal. I'd probably play that every single game if you guys didn't hate me for it. And they're all so good. They're all totally different from each other, too. Sivir's really got that AoE powerhouse thing going. Very strong early game. Ezreal has that very strong early game, but he's just flexible. He's got so much utility to him. And then Misfortune is super strong early game. She's just damage, raw damage. And I like her movement speed, too. But raw damage is Misfortune. Which Ezreal is too, and if I played Corki would be too, but there's just something about Misfortune that I like, so.
I wonder what that is.
Really? It's not the boobs. Okay, do you think Kennen makes a better solo top or a mid? Depends on who you're up against, period. He does fine on both lanes. What is your opinion on Renekton? Is he underpowered, overpowered, or do you think he's balanced? Is he viable for competitive play? If any changes were to be done to him, what would you want changed? I don't know. He's got a really ridiculously strong early game. Once he hits level 6, he's strong. But I don't think he is just an amazing champion by any stretch of the imagination. Just his ability to become unkillable and that right when he hits level 6. But, you know, so does Jax to a degree. So do other champions. So the double dash, I think, is okay. But the double dash, from my understanding, can bug out. Kind of like Tristana, where you're kind of self-stunning yourself. Yeah, well, whatever. Ooh, James, I don't know. I wouldn't say anything about Renekton. If I played Renekton more, I would say whether he's underpowered, overpowered, whatever. I don't know enough about him. I haven't played him enough to really know the ins and outs. What are some really good ward placements? I recommend you look up Learn the League Warding. It's a 30-minute video or thereabouts, and it goes well into depth on all of the good, great ward placements. Now, other places are fine, but I recommend, if you haven't seen that, watch it. I made it before the Learn the League series. It shares the same name, but it is an extraordinarily long video. You can also read that at learntheleague.com, and you have to go down until it says try a free section and then follow the link there. What is your opinion on the ARAM mode coming in the nearest future? Do you think it could be a custom game mode only? I don't know. I hope it's not a custom game mode only. I hope that they do actually put it into a queue, because it looks like something I'd have fun playing. So I don't really care too much for Dominion. This is kind of answering a separate question. Somebody asked me about Dominion on here, I think on YouTube. But anyway, I don't really care too much for Dominion, but all random, all mid is fun. I mean, it looks like a lot of fun. If Dominion were all random, all mid, I would play Dominion all the time. Not all the time. I mean, I'd still like Summoner's Rift, but it's a game mode that I'm looking forward to. So I hope it's on a normal queue and it's not still just custom games. And that's my answer for it. All random, all mid. For people who don't know, it's everybody plays a random champion and everybody goes mid, and they fight it out. And there is no point in going back because you will not be healed for if you go back to base. It's talking about the new map, Proving Grounds, when it's released. So yeah, that's not out already, right? No, it's not. Is it? I don't know what they did. Oh, okay. So now you just can't pick. What? They're trolling us. Just 1 second, I'll show you guys. Yeah, there's only 3 options now. So they're just trolling us. I can't use the winter map anymore. I like the winter map. I actually like the normal map now that they improved the quality so much. Looking at YouTube now. Oh, looking at the Who are your top 5 supports and why? Alistar is one of my very favorites. Leona is one of my very favorites. I'm not just referring to supports, but also tanks who would be in a support role at bottom lane. Leona, Nautilus. I love, despite my complaints about Soraka, I love, especially if I'm playing Ezreal, playing with a Soraka. Always farm, never die, get all sorts of harass. It's wonderful. Secure kills. I love playing. See, that's the thing. Like, I don't just dislike Soraka. I actually understand how helpful she is, and a lot of you do too. Like, I think she needs to be nerfed, but not. I wouldn't nerf her if she was always on my team and never on the opponent's team. Then I'd keep her just as she is, because I do like getting mana. Your thoughts about Jarvan? Jarvan gets screwed because of his... I talk about this on stream somewhat often, but... Jarvan gets screwed because there's all of these new champions that... I don't know, it's like 50% or 60% or some crazy... Somebody tallied it up. I don't remember the number. But it's at least 50% of all new champions have some sort of dash, gap closer, blink, whatever. And so the game has been shifting more and more and more and more towards everybody has, or a lot of people have, blinks and dashes and gap closers. Basically mobility things. A lot of the original champions did not. So you've got champions like Ashe, you've got champions like a few other Misfortune, Kog'Maw, who have 0 escapes. And they're kind of more and more punished as time goes on, because there are more champions who can easily get to them and shut them down. Now, teams have, like, people still want a Kog'Maw on the team, so teams will do everything they can to protect that Kog'Maw and keep people from staying on Kog'Maw and letting Kog'Maw just do his thing. Other AD carries don't have to worry about that as much, especially the new ones. Although Varus, okay, so Varus doesn't have a gap closer. Draven, I don't really like Draven. I think he's got decent burst damage, but I don't really like him very much. But anyway, he has that movement speed boost, which isn't that strong. So I'd still put him down kind of in the better than Ashe as far as mobility, but not a whole lot better. Anyway, where am I going with that? Yeah. So anyway, the reason Jarvan gets screwed is because most of these abilities, you can go right through his wall. If you play Vayne, one of my favorite matchups when I played Vayne all the time before she got nerfed, my favorite matchup was against Jarvan, because when you had a Jarvan, you could tumble out of his ultimate, you could knock him out of his ultimate, between those two, you could just totally screw with him. Just completely screw with him. And there's nothing he can do about it. So there you go. What's the difference between true damage and attack damage? Well, attack damage just adds to your damage you deal with normal attacks and some abilities. Attack damage refers to physical damage usually. I think some abilities will convert attack damage into magic damage. But anyway, attack damage is a stat. True damage, on the other hand, is not a stat. Should I actually... People were asking about Learn the League for true damage. I just don't know what I would say. Anyway, true damage doesn't... It's exactly like other damage, but it ignores armor and magic resist. What do you think about Orianna Ciderhelm? Since her range was nerfed, I really don't see her very much. Yeah, since her range was nerfed, I really don't see her very much. She seems pretty strong, like, in terms of what she brings to a team. I've seen, like, Kageju when he was playing. I think he's in the Navy now. Well, that's why you haven't seen him in a while. I've seen him play her pretty well, and I've seen some players play Orianna pretty well, just genuinely really well. So I know Orianna's still pretty strong, but she's not who she used to be, and a lot of the original attraction to her was as a zoning champion, like a high skill cap zoning champion. And since she got her range nerfed, a lot of the people who were originally attracted to her just moved on to other champions. So I think she's just not very popular. Yeah. I don't think she's amazing, but I do think she's pretty good in terms of what she can do if she's really good. What else? I just saw something. Who's your favorite mid lane and why? I love Ahri. Ahri is actually one that I play somewhat frequently. I mean, like once a month. Ahri is a champion that I play because I think she's a really well-designed champion. She has so much flexibility. She has... Well, you've seen Ahri. And people tried to argue, well, she's not really a mobile assassin. Like, she doesn't really have mobility. She's not really an assassin. Well, yes, she was. And they keep nerfing her. They keep, like, increasing the duration on her ult and the time between jumps on her ult and whatever. But, yeah, she's a strong champion, and they keep nerfing her. I think she's still a strong champion. I think she's kind of Lee Sin syndrome, where it's going to take a little while before she's not a strong champion. Bring it down to the level of Lee Sin. Now, Lee Sin's still a good champion, don't get me wrong, but they have nerfed Lee Sin hard from his initial form. Ciderhelm, I saw this question a couple places. Hecarim tips. Oh, he's on sale tomorrow. Okay, so yeah, I'll say a little bit about Hecarim. I think Hecarim is an amazing champion that is underplayed, that is not as popular as he probably deserves to be. His damage isn't all that high, but his initiates are amazing. I think in especially non-pro play, where people are going to make more mistakes, Hecarim is great for punishing any kind of mistake. He has 2 good initiates. The reason I say all this, the reason I think he's good, is because he has not 1 but 2 good initiates. He has his knockback where he can get behind somebody and knock them towards his team. He also has his ultimate where he can fear somebody. Again, having not checked this, the last I checked, you could not block either with a spell shield, which makes him unique in that Volibear does something very similar with his like throw over the shoulder. Same with Singed. When Volibear does it, Spell Shield blocks it. When Hecarim does it, Spell Shield does not block it. They're both on-hit abilities. There's no mechanical difference between them except one's a knockback and one's a throw over. But they're essentially the exact same thing mechanically. But for whatever reason, the last I checked, Spell Shield doesn't block Hecarim's initiates. So I think he is... I think if you want a great initiator, and initiation is going to be a big problem in a game, there are very few champions as good as Hecarim. But then again, initiation isn't the biggest problem in a lot of games. Sometimes you have good initiators, and sometimes your problems are other things, and Hecarim's not going to help with those. So that's the best way of putting it. But if you really like having a Rammus just because you really like that initiate from Rammus, give Hecarim a try. Victor opinions. I rarely see him anymore, and I don't. Is he still bugged where he deals like double damage with? I don't know. For runes, what would you say for Hecarim, Armor Pen? I can't tell you off the top of my head. I'd have to look at him again. I haven't looked at him since I did the don't feed for him. Anyway, Victor tips and opinions. I rarely see him anymore, and I don't know why. Victor's kind of a weird champion. I don't know. I didn't enjoy Victor at all when I played him, and I think they've buffed him since when I played him. But I played him just right when he released with when I did the don't feed. I did not enjoy him at all. Smart casting took a little while to get used to, but there were all sorts of bugs with Victor. Even back when I was playing, where you would shoot, but you wouldn't actually it looked like the thing was staying in place. But all of that said, Victor he pumped out damage. His ultimate was so strong. His E was so strong. His W was kind of His kind of class mechanic where he has his own item, I thought that was not that great. What else? His Q. His Q was dumb. When I played it, I don't know if they increased the missile speed on the Q. I think that's one of the changes they made. Victor's Q, you couldn't exchange with it. It's the kind of ability you exchange with, where you go in, you say, say Vladimir, and you go towards each other. And you Q Vladimir, and Vladimir Qs you. I think Vladimir's Q is a single target nuke that heals him a little bit. The thing is, your Q on Victor gives you a shield, right? And so that's cool, whatever. It gives you a shield, so when you exchange, you can shield yourself. The problem is the missile speed was so short that, and Vladimir's not a good example because Vladimir's Q, I think, is instant. But anybody you were exchanging with, their missile would hit you before you shielded. So you do one quick 1Q ability exchange between two casters at mid, and what happens is your shield goes up after you've taken the damage, but the developer said they were balancing the damage on Victor's Q being lower because you were getting a shield out of it. But in a lot of the early game exchanges, you actually didn't get any benefit from that shield, and he was kind of, I don't know. Anyway, I think they increased some missile speed on the Q because the Q had to go out and then return to you for you to get the shield. So, I don't know. I haven't played him since. I'm pretty sure they've buffed him since his initial form. I think they might have made his W, his little slowing field, activate a little faster. I think. Anyway, he does a lot of damage. So regardless of anything I'm saying, these are quality of life things that I found very annoying on him. I didn't find him fun to play, but he does do a lot of damage. Between his E, the line skill shot, vector based, whatever, and especially his R, just a lot of damage. So Ciderhelm, what do you think about something like a range increase as an item passive not stacking? I mean, that's kind of an obvious one, but I think it comes into the problem of every AD carry gets that item no matter what. Because any kind of range increase is a significant boost to your survival. Nah, I don't think that's a good idea. Well, I shouldn't say I don't think it's a good idea. If it was in the game, I don't think it would have any huge adverse effect, but I understand the reasoning of not putting it in the game, and I don't think they're going to put it in the game anytime soon because they've got things balanced right now. So let's say you add 100. Let's say you add 100 range. So you've got an item that gives you 100 range passive. Well, what does that do for Caitlyn? It makes her 750 range. So she's long range and then she's longer range. What does that do for somebody like Tristana? It gives her more range. What does that do for somebody like Sivir? 550 to 650, so then she's at Caitlyn's range. That's all fine. What does it do for someone like Urgot? Urgot goes from 450 to 550 range. He goes from, being a short-range champion to being completely competitive and completely safe in a lane. So 100 range is a huge example, but I think there's balance issues that come into play. I don't think it's all that crazy. Victor mechanic on his Q, now the shield is instant. Okay, thank you. Hi, Setter. Back in episode 3, you said you'd like to learn Brand and Cassiopeia, though you really haven't played them much afterward. Is it possible to see some games with them in the future? Yeah. They're still high on my to-do list. Yeah. You'll see more Brand and Cassiopeia. I'd like to play those two champions really well. I really would. I like them a lot. So I think Cassiopeia more than Brand, because I don't like all-in champions. I don't like champions no matter how much damage they do. I don't like champions where I have no chance of escape. I think that you're so reliant on your team to put you in a position where you don't need to escape. Yeah. So Brand's problem, what I'm getting at is, Brand is a champion who can deal all sorts of damage, but he has no escape mechanism. He has a brief stun he can put on one target who's chasing him. This is a problem on a lot of melee champions. This is why I don't like it on my casters. This is why I don't want to play casters who don't have escapes. And even to a degree why I like Ezreal, for instance. So the thing is, when you have an all-in champion, once you engage a fight, you have to win that fight or you're dead. No matter what, you are dead. When you have champions with escapes and you can reset, you can get back to the tower, you can go do whatever, you can go push a different tower, you can do all sorts of things. But with an all-in champion, if your team is on the losing side of that battle, your teammates might get out, but you're dead, no matter what. I don't like that position. I don't like that being the position I'm in as a carry. So, especially with someone like Brand, I think that's Brand's biggest weakness, is that he is an all-in champion. You do not have an escape mechanism unless you're going against one person, and you can easily stun them as they're chasing you. But he deals all sorts of damage. Don't get me wrong. He deals crazy damage. So that's a trade-off. But it's not a trade-off I like to make, and I think it's a trade-off a lot of people don't like to make. And that's why he's not the most popular AP carry out there, despite his damage, despite his cool mechanics. But yeah, I'll play him again. Cassiopeia, on the other hand, is a champion I love because she does have that awesome ultimate, which can be used for getting away just as easily as whatever. And I think she has the slows as well, or she does have the slow as well. So Cassiopeia, I think more than Brand, I would like to be good with Cassiopeia, but I want to be good with both of them. But anyway, that's all. Would you like to see more ward items like Wriggle's Lantern? No. Well, I don't know. Warning's neither here nor there. More wards on both teams. Meh. I don't know. Cider, some Vayne games, and I hate Vayne. I don't hate Vayne. I used to love Vayne. Vayne used to be my go-to AD carry. And she got nerfed really hard. That's when I started to learn Sivir, because Sivir got her rework, and that's when I really fell in love with Sivir. I don't know. Vayne's just not as good as she used to be. She was better. I think she's statistically a pretty low champion in terms of games won, too. So, Brand and Karthus are the same then. Well, Karthus, it's okay if you die, though. I mean, Karthus gets a benefit out of dying. Not a huge one, but Karthus sticks around. So, people focus Karthus in a team fight. Then Karthus does a lot of damage to everybody who's still there. Brand gets focused in a team fight, and all his damage is done. I don't know. Karthus, I'd like to get good at Karthus too. I played a Karthus game, I think, over the weekend. Oh, it was awful. It was just awful. And then we played that game, I think, on stream on Monday or Tuesday, where there's an enemy Karthus against our Xerath. And I actually kind of learned some cool things, like with the flash defile on Karthus. I thought that was well handled. So I kind of want to learn him a little better. Oh. What's my opinion on Yorick? Outlasts his mana, and then you're safe to do things in lane. I don't know. Yorick's kind of a... I enjoyed playing Yorick, but I felt like it was just mash buttons to win. And that actually worked. So, I don't know. I have no legitimate opinion on Yorick. None at all. Just mash buttons and win was, I think Splug was, I played York because Splug was playing York top lane, and Splug's strategy was to mash buttons and win, and then I did the same thing and it worked. So yeah. But anyway, you have to outlast his mana pool. You have to out-sustain his harass. If you're a champion who can out-sustain his harass, you're going to do wonderful against York. If you can't out-sustain his harass, you can't shield, do whatever, you're going to have real problems. Stay near bushes if you're against York, because then you can drop in and drop aggro from them. York's getting a rework down the road because they are reprogramming how all of his ghouls, his minions, work. So just kind of a more you know kind of thing. If you didn't know that, he is getting a rework. They've done a lot of programming on it, and they're still working on it. Vayne's big nerf. Okay, so I don't remember everything they nerfed about Vayne, but Vayne's big nerf, the humorous one to me is her passive is when she's chasing a champion, she gets bonus movement speed. Well, she used to be a good chaser because of it. But one of the things they did was they bumped her movements, her base movement speed down. So now her passive merely makes you as fast as the person you're chasing. So you don't actually gain ground on them. Yeah, I don't know. It's a little silly. Silly. I don't know. I don't remember all the nerfs they did to Vayne, but she's just... I'd have to actually look. Let me see. Let me see if I can easily find this. Vayne nerfs. Boy, this was a good idea. Just randomly search Google. Hey. Is League of Legends website down?
Somebody said the game's down.
Wait, what? No, the game's not down, is it?
You can't play a game.
What? What's going on? Well, there you go. I can't play games anyway, even if I... Alright. Well, I can't say too much. Can you ask your questions more times if you don't see it? Well, sure. That was a good question, Mr. Music. And that's the only question you get. So if you repeat your question, I can't answer it because you asked your question. Yeah, Karma is just too team reliant, and since 90% of the community doesn't know how she works, so this makes her pretty bad. Yes, I don't know how... Yeah, I don't know how... Karma's a bad champion because she is a champion that requires players to know how she works, to run through her beams. And I think Karma players probably got frustrated enough that people didn't figure out how she worked, that there's nobody playing her, so now nobody ever learns how she works. And so now when somebody does play her, it's a disaster, and then everybody assumes Karma's bad. Well, maybe Karma is bad, maybe Karma is good. She's got good damage if she gets AP, but I don't know the last time I've seen a Karma. I know I see them occasionally. I just don't remember what they do. I played against a jungle Karma once and got destroyed. An AD jungle Karma that was trolling, and she shielded herself to victory. And that was so sad. Wow. Well, can't check on Vayne nerfs. I'm looking for questions actually. So you could design a champion. What would the champion be like? Some mix of Olaf and Ahri. Imagine that. I don't know what it would be, but it'd be like. You'd have to have both Olaf. You'd have to have Ahri's mobility. So maybe something more like Ezreal with a blink. But you would have to have the immune to CC ult. Well, no. I would give up the... No, I wouldn't. Trying to think. I'm trying to think of my Ahri Olaf mix here. Trying really hard to think about this because I don't know if I give up the immunity to CC, because that's what defines Olaf. That's what makes him so fun, is you can totally troll. You can just burn Ghost, run into Baron, smite Baron, run back out and survive. I've done that a lot on Dragon. I've only done it like I think once or twice on Baron. But you can do that and survive, and that's what makes it so awesome to play Olaf. Is your ultimate is just this get out of jail free, like do whatever stupid crap you want to do ability. Especially with Ghost. I don't know how many times those of you who watched me before on stream have seen me do this, but like if there's a blue buff or something and I know they're taking, I'll just burn Ghost, and if I need to burn my ultimate to get away, but I'll burn Ghost, get in, smite their blue, and then just run right back out while they're doing it. It's just because you have no fear. Like if they're not going to burst you down, just your ultimate's going to get you out of anything. So you can try stupid stuff on Olaf. But the thing about Ahri is kind of her mobility, especially. That's what I really like about her. So yeah, I think that ultimate is just a really well done ability. Do you think a drain mana ability would be cool on a champion? No, and I agree with Riot about this. Drain mana is not at all fun for these reasons. I don't even know if it's like Soraka. I'm trying to think of a... No, drain mana is stupid. There. Well, anyway, here's the reason. I won't just leave it at that. Drain mana is stupid because it makes your gameplay miserable if you're the one having your mana drained. If you are the one mana draining, it doesn't really do anything for you other than make your lane phase super safe because they can't use abilities. Yeah. And that's all you're doing. You're just making your lane super safe. Hello, Soraka. That's why I don't like you. Except if you're on my team. So I'd like a mana drain, but it makes the enemy team just miserable to be out of mana. And that is something that I did not like about Heroes of Newerth Dota 2. I do not like mana drains. I think that they're just a bad idea. So, yeah, there you go. Movement speed reduced to 300 from 305. Night Hunter movement speed reduced to 30 from 40. Tumble bonus damage reduced to whatever. Yeah, okay. Final hour tumble stealth duration reduced to 1 second from 1.5 seconds. Yeah, there you go. I do miss Vayne. Maybe I would play Vayne again. She was a really strong champion. All I've ever wanted to do was load up the League of Legends webpage. Tell that to Mage Hunter. Mage Hunter, is that who I'm remembering? Anyway, Drain, Mage Bane, Mage Hunter, are those the same thing? Anyway, Drain mana isn't fun because one, it doesn't feel fun. It feels really bad to be drained. Yeah, okay. Old Wit's End had 42 mana drain per hit. Yeah. What's... I don't know. You had to get a Wit's End at that point. You couldn't do it early on in the game. What? Oh, that's awful. That is awful. I can't even tell you guys what I'm laughing at. Is that like the top thread on Reddit? But if you go to Reddit, League of Legends, and you look at the number one thing on there, you'll see what I'm laughing at. What are your opinions on AP versus AD Ezreal? So I think AD Ezreal is great, and that's probably how I will continue to play him. But AP Ezreal I have seen be successful. Yeah. I have no opinion. It's like Kog'Maw. Like, I prefer to play Kog'Maw as AD, but there are clearly examples of AP Kog'Maw doing extraordinarily well. I'm not somebody who believes you have to play it one way or the other. Ezreal he has problems farming. He has problems farming when he's AP, but he can still farm if he's really good about doing it. He's still a skill shot champion. Yeah. That's AP Ezreal is completely fine. So you want to play it? I just don't play it much myself, but I play a couple times on stream. One of them to silly result, and I think the other one went okay. But yeah, I primarily play AD. Just they both work fine. Have you ever played Tristan? Tristan is another good example of can be played as AP and can be somewhat effective as AP. Yeah. Also, I would say not suitable for work, but that is by definition what Reddit is. So
That is not true.
also that thread is marked not suitable for work.
Exactly. You have to do that.
Yeah. Ah, what are we doing? Yeah, I just answered the question about designing a champion. Don't ask that again.
You know, you could stop the stream.
Oh, devious. My wife says to stop the stream. Deviously. We'll see what that means. So, I will see you guys tomorrow. Hopefully I'll have a working game, and hopefully I'll have runes back so I can actually do things. If not, maybe I'll do the spectating, shoutcasting a game if I don't have my runes back by then. So a community thing. We'll do something, provided the servers are up. This has been a bad week for League of Legends. It really has. So we'll see how it goes. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a wonderful day, wonderful afternoon, wonderful evening. It's been fun. If you have any more questions, I'll put up a new thread on Facebook soon for more questions. Goodbye. Almost goodbye. Oh, get Dungeons of Dreadmore. It's a good game. It's like $6. You might hate it, but it's $6 or $7. So, yeah, pick it up.